Welcome back. The second main area of focus of historians as to why World War I broke out in 1914 goes back to Chancellor Bismarck, as you know, who was the Chancellor, the founder of Germany when Germany came into existence in 1870. Now, as you know, Germany came into existence as a result of a war in which Prussia and the smaller German states, rallying behind Prussia, defeated France. It was a humiliating defeat for France that resulted in France losing a huge amount of territory, in particular, as we know, Alsace-Lorraine, on the border between France and the newly created state of Germany. Now, historians will have varying views about Bismarck's responsibility. I think the general consensus is that what Bismarck did is he started a process which, if Bismarck had continued, World War I could have been avoided, but unfortunately Kaiser Wilhelm II came along after Bismarck resigned and dismantled a lot of the work that Bismarck did. So just understanding what Bismarck's work was. Okay, well, the central premise of Bismarck's foreign policy that he pursued in the 19 years that he was Chancellor of Germany was that France was motivated by revenge because she had been defeated in the Franco-Prussian War. Basically, she wanted Alsace-Lorraine back, and that unless Germany did something in terms of foreign policy, France would go to war against Germany. So Bismarck's foreign policy was designed to prevent that happening. Now, of course, that's worth bearing in mind because in 1914, war did break out between Germany and France, and it did result in France getting Alsace-Lorraine back in 1918. So Bismarck's whole policy was designed to prevent what eventually happening. Okay. So his main aim, therefore, was to isolate France, okay, by drawing up a network of alliances and friendly agreements between Germany and other European countries so that France would be isolated. Now, this podcast is not going to even attempt to go into the details of these, other than to mention what those alliances were called and who was involved in them. So there were two key alliances. The first was what we call the Dreikaiserbund of 1872-3, that involved Germany, Austria-Hungary and Russia. And the second was called the Triple Alliance, that was 10 years later in 1882, that involved Germany, Austria-Hungary again, and Italy. So by 1882, Germany had built up a network of alliances consisting of herself, Austria-Hungary, Russia and Italy. There's the Dreikaiserbund. Literally, you might be able to work it out. You know what the word Bund means. Bund means league. Kaiser means emperor. Drei is the German word for three. So it literally means the Three Emperors League. So the Dreikaiser League of the Three Emperors League of 1872 effectively was a friendly agreement between the Empire of Germany, the Empire of Russia, and the Empire of Austria-Hungary. And it was motivated by the fact that, you know, our countries are very similar. We are all empires. We are all monarchs. We should be working together and supporting each other's interests against the forces of the modern age that may be threatening monarchs and empires. So, and that was an alliance system that Bismarck created in 1872 that was very successful and lasted for many, many years. The second one, the Triple Alliance, we've already looked at that in the first podcast. That was signed in 1882. It was a more formal military alliance, as you can see in the detail there. Austria-Hungary, Germany and Italy, they promised to defend each other if either were attacked by another power. Okay, so that was very much a military alliance, a defensive alliance, an agreement to work together. So if, for example, France attacked Germany, then Austria-Hungary would and Italy would then come to Germany's aid. That was basically the idea. So those were the alliance systems. Britain, on the fringe of Europe, was traditionally isolationist. There's a nice word there, isolationist. Britain didn't get involved in European affairs. Britain was a seafaring power. She was an island, she had a navy, she was the first European country to develop a network of colonies abroad. She had more colonies abroad than any other European nation. She didn't want to get entangled in European affairs. So Bismarck didn't feel the need for Britain to be part of his alliance network. He knew fully well that traditionally Britain and France, as neighbours with the English Channel between them, there was enmity, there was hostility. That was the traditional thing. It went back to the Middle Ages, the Battle of Agincourt, etc., etc. And so Bismarck, knowing that the traditional tension was between Britain and France, he didn't feel it was necessary for Britain to be brought into his network of alliances. Okay, so on the whole, by 1890, that was the situation, and Bismarck was successful. Of course, he then handed it over to Kaiser Wilhelm II, and that's where the problems began. That's the end of this podcast. The next one, play this straight afterwards.